All right. Welcome back to revops or whatever. It's lovely to have you again.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I'm really glad you wanted to have another interesting conversation with me. And you proposed the topic this time, which I think is extra special. So today we're going to talk about how the platform is a point solution now, and the point solution is a platform. So kind of just remembering back to when everything had to integrate with Salesforce, and now everything is Salesforce, except it's not, because it's Monday, and that means your sales team just bought something new with a dashboard that also has to be your source of truth. And I guess today we'll talk about like the evolution and the devolution of tech stacks, and how every tool is either trying to be a platform or pretending it isn't one.
Yeah. I will try and not use too many or not call out specific tools by name, and only use them, refer to them categorically. But
oh, you mean Gong?
No, but sure, that's a great example. No, I wasn't going to do that. But yeah, I remember when I first really got into ops 10 years ago. Like you're saying, it's like you had Salesforce, and it was very much the hub and spoke model of you had a bunch of stuff that integrated with your CRM, most likely Salesforce, because HubSpot didn't exist. And everything just did one thing. And then all those things started to do more and more things. And then your sales engagement platform suddenly became a second CRM when you had people managing opportunities in two different places, and just became like the Wild West of data management. And this was before anybody was using proper iPaaS for ETLs. Was Zapier and WorkAuto weren't household names just yet, so you didn't have a good workaround for some automation kicked off over here. I need something else to happen in CRM now, and it just became reporting. I feel like there was a weird stage in sales reporting where you go, well, especially for activities, it's before you could pull stuff back in effectively into your CRM from Outreach or SalesLoft and do good reporting of it, the account, in the early days of account-based marketing. And you're like, oh, we want to see how many different people we touched at an account. And you go, great, how do I do that? I don't know. You had to go to Outreach, or you had to go into SalesLoft to get those things. And because the reporting was there, just kind of kept stringing along the work streams that were also happening there.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I remember that, and that was really only 2 or 3 years ago that we were still doing things like that. Because I remember there's a really great ebook that Taft, Taft, put together, and that was out there. No. That was exactly how do I utilize what Outreach is passing back in and make it something. Whereas now we have the decision to make of, I can do it here and I can do it here. So where is the best place to do it? Whereas before it was push everything back into Salesforce and then do something with it. So it's definitely a very big shift in behavior and decision making on sort of order of operations.
Yeah. I said I wasn't going to call it tools. Actually, I'm just going to start doing that right away. ZoomInfo, I think, is a really bad, it's a great platform if you just need 70% accurate data across an entire your whole ICB or your whole database. But it integrates with every other one of this sales tools in your tech stack. Most it integrates directly with Outreach. It integrates with I think Gong as well. You can do this. You can have your entire sales out. You can have your entire outbound motion happening outside of your CRM, which maybe is fine, and maybe I'm just the old man yelling on my lawn at this point. But to set up you can go from intent signal to save search to scrape for contacts, push into an outreach sequence, automate half of your first the first set of touches, and then if you're using outreach to create opportunities, by the time that name that you scraped in ZoomInfo first gets into Salesforce, it could be at the point of opportunity creation.
Yeah.
So you're also potentially missing, yes, there's reporting available in Outreach. Yes, there's you can see some of what's going on the ZoomInfo side, but your overall sales cycle beyond just the opportunity stages, you could be losing out on a lot of that very valuable reporting if you're not pulling that back into the CRM appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, to go, oh, an entire business motion, like an entire GTM business motion, is now happening outside of what everyone had previously collectively decided is the core system, is kind of wild.
Yeah, I think also it goes back to like, are we actually still solving revenue problems, or are we just kind of like managing this like constant redefinition of what like every tool thinks its job is? Because like, how much time does your team actually spend like re-platforming versus optimizing? Like, there's got to be a way to define like the operational cost of like constantly rerouting processes to accommodate like yet another tool that's like wants to own the workflow. And then, like you said, you're inadvertently creating gaps where you think that you're making improvements, but like now there are more connections that we need to bridge as well.
Yeah, I'm saying we, like I've fallen for it too, but like a lot of times I think we're letting the tools dictate process, and it really needs to be the other way around. And because you go, oh, well, this tool is capable of doing something, and you fall into the part of what's possible trap, which like, yeah, I'm very guilty of that too, because it's the shiny ball, it's a cool feature, like, oh, I've always wanted to build this thing out, or like, wow, we could do XYZ. Meanwhile, your demo form submissions don't get responded to for like 36 hours. Like,
yeah,
do we really need to integrate Zoom Info and Outreach, or should we maybe see why Marketo is taking 6 hours to push and Razor MQL to your SDR team?
Yeah, I think you touched on that too. It's like it's a big case of FOMO, I think, too. And I talked about this when I talked about AI, like people feel like they're missing out on something, but like then you end up like sort of stuck between like a finance team that's like, can we please have fewer vendors? But your go-to-market team is like, I want the best of everything. And then it's like, how do you justify kind of like the redundant spend across like all of the platforms that promise to consolidate, but really you're just like stacking more things on top again?
Well, you just need to buy another tool that will track the ROI for all of these vendors.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up, in order to solve the problem of spending too much money, you have to spend more money to figure out where all money's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you think about like, you just like find the finance team, like that's a huge part of revenue operations. Is great. We did close the opportunity. Like, what happens next? And like so many of the tools now are so focused on top of funnel engagement, like all these intent signals, and like, yeah, it's all great. It's all super valuable if you're operationalizing it effectively and everything else down funnel is humming along smoothly. Then sure, yeah, go spend 80% of your time, on investigating the next big AI solution that will automate away everyone's jobs. But it's kind of all for naught if like you can't build them. Like, was your quote to cash process like?
Exactly.
Can CS effectively report on what renewals are upcoming? Maybe. And like again, like if all that's like in tip-top shape, then please have at it. But in my experience, a lot of times that is not always the case. And maybe I'm just, which is probably also true, but
no. And I think that is part of the problem, right? And I think like you just said, a tool that there probably is a tool that measures the ROI of all of your other tools. I'm sure there is, because I feel like I'm also seeing a sort of swing back to like the smaller, more specialized tools. But then you kind of like wonder, like, who thought of this? And like, did we test the market? Because like literally I had a conversation with my client and they were like, we bought 2 new tools and we're working on getting those set up. And I was like, well, let's talk about that before you do that next time. And I'm like, can you tell me what they are? Had not heard their names. And again, this is my job, like to know what these things are. Had not heard their names. So I Googled them. They're not even on like the front. They're not even on like the first page of search results. Then you have to put like AI on the name. And it's like, literally one of them was it writes the emails. And the other one was it does the sequence. And it's like, is this like, did you really want to buy both of those? Like,
that already existed.
That does that already. But I mean,
well, everything now has to have some sort of like co-pilot agent included. Well, it'll be behind a paywall, but like everything has to have that. And for some tools, I think it's great, like as a starting point, but it's never and again, like I've kind of resigned myself to be just to accept that I'm probably a slow adopter on. There's too many new tools now. Like it's just impossible to stay proficient on everything. And so the ones that I've used, like, okay, this gets me, like, this moves the starting line significantly, perhaps, or enough to where the value is there. But something like that where you go, well, is it okay? Great. It writes an email. Are you just going to hit send, or rather, are you going to like let the second tool just like pick it up and run with it, or you're probably still going to at least spend a minute, like going, did it leave the first name as a variable, or did it actually populate it with John or whoever? I realize these are like kind of the very basic things, but like if you, as soon as you start spending time like tweaking that messaging at all, like you may as well just have written the email yourself and just send you to send it through Gmail, or use Outreach, which your team probably already has, and or whatever else, whatever other tool. The bloat and overlap. Not even just I think the overlap has like always, or that is where I find the most annoyance. Like, because it used to be like, okay, you had a CRM, you had like a sales engagement tool, you had a data, you may be multiple, but like a data vendor, or at least like one or two of them, a dial solution, and like maybe something else. I don't even know what else you would need, but each of those things did the one thing. Like as everything kind of started to grow, it was like, okay, well, like now like a call recorder, like, okay, well, great. Well, now Gong and Outreach are starting to have some like a bit of overlap. Like now, like, well, now ZoomInfo can bypass the like integration from Salesforce to Outreach, and so now Gong also has a dialer, so you don't need this other thing, but one team is still using it because it's cheaper for them, and like you just end up with like 10 tools in your stack, and you go, well, 8 of these things do 80% of each other, and how do we get back to just, well, I guess it's probably a question for each person in each org, like, do you want a bunch of platforms? And like, great, well, then you need to figure out you need to draw the swim lanes and go, this tool does these things, like you were saying, and this tool is responsible for these things. And where there is overlap, you will have to make a decision on, which one wins out. Or do you want to go back to like, just give me the cheap tool that does just the one thing I need? And like, I found myself leaning more towards that direction, just going, what problem do I need to solve? And is there either something that already exists that I can just go spend like pennies on the dollar for, or do I just need to build it? And there, between tools like Zapier or Workato, like, you can probably build what you need if it's something in the realm of automation or just moving data around. And if it's obviously more than that, you're right, you may be better off like buying something. But yeah, I've found myself just going, no, give me just very, very simple tech stack, and like let's nail the process before we start layering in like a million shiny features.
Yeah, it's funny because I keep and the client I just mentioned, they're on HubSpot, and I keep kind of like trying to encourage my clients to like, let's move everything back into HubSpot. Let's try it out with HubSpot sequences. Let's try it out with you using an AI that's available to you to generate emails. When we outgrow that, then we'll get a new thing, right? And it's just like, I just wonder, like, are these platforms like actually trying to solve real problems, or are they just like trying to build walls high enough that procurement won't escape? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to say, like, I'm going to build a really great website, and I'm going to tell you, like, this is the best thing ever because it does this like very specialized thing. And it's like, it's going to take us so long to even get the team to understand how to use all of this stuff together, get it all set up. It's just like, they're very good at selling. Yeah. I know what your problem is, and I have the exact right thing to fix it for you. But like, are you really solving a problem? I just don't know.
I mean, credit to their like marketing team for nailing the the messaging. You mentioned something like bringing it back into HubSpot or into Salesforce. Like, I mean, say what you will about the CRM native like sequencing features or dialers or whatever else, like whether it's what is Salesforce calling now? What used to be HVS or like this HubSpot one? Like, are they the best? No, because it was an add-on to a CRM function. Like it was an add-on to the core CRM. Like, sure, a point solution, what used to just be a point solution, is probably going to do it a little bit better and have some more bells and whistles. But like, to your point, did you outgrow what you already had? Probably not. And especially in like, we've played in similar sandboxes with a lot of these like earlier stage companies where you're talking about like, look, you're trying to get to that first like 10 or 50 million in revenue. Like we're not talking about like enterprise level org.
Right.
You know, look, when your ops budget is like more than you know, other companies' entire valuation, sure, like go buy 6 different tools and run like a bunch of different tests and see which ones like them. Maybe the North America team likes outreach and the European team likes sales off. Cool. Like if you got the pockets for that, like that's a game I haven't played. But when you're talking about VC funded early stage, like Series A, Series B companies that are a lot of times like not strapped for cash, but like still very budget conscious when it comes to these things. Yeah, how far can you take the tech stack that you have and like maybe band-aid a solution for 6 months and see if it holds, or just like great, if it breaks, you know, breaks right away, fantastic. Okay, like go buy the thing you need. Like finding that limit, I think, is no longer the norm. Like it used to be a bit like, hey, like we're gonna run with something very far until we can't, and then you go about it. Now it's just like, oh well, I have a startup and therefore I need these 6 tools and clay and you know, whatever else, and like your tech stack is worth more than your company is.
Yeah, and I feel like the hidden benefit of starting with the one that you already have and then growing out of it is you get to spend some time putting together a list of requirements for the thing that you're going to replace it with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have the experience of working in it, and it's like, okay, well, it can't do this. I would really like it if it would be able to do this. I'll work around it for now. And then over time, you've developed this list of like, okay, my next solution needs to have all of these things. And you go into those conversations prepared with that list. Can it do this? Can it do that? And then I feel like you're less wowed by like that demo, because you're like, oh, okay, it does do this and it doesn't do this. So which of these workarounds is more painful for me? And then you're doing like, I feel like a better, more serious evaluation between, you know, the tool that you grow into.
Yeah, I feel like in my experience, like CPQ as either like actual Salesforce CPQ or just as a category, like that is always something that people, like most organizations are like, oh well, we need it. So you need to, like, you probably do at some point, but like can you just use regular products in Salesforce? Like are you doing consumption billing? You're not. So that's like one of the big advantages of a tool like that. So why do you need to go spend an extra, you know, add on $75,000 to your Salesforce spend for something that you really don't need? Like, plus there's hidden costs, especially with a tool like CPQ of, you know, resourcing and implementation and things like that. But it's like, yeah, to your point, it's like, well, find the cracks in your current system and let that be your rubric for, you know, evaluating replacement cost or replacement tools. And if you don't find those cracks, like great, like you just save yourself a ton of money and simplicity, and you don't have to go through a procurement process. You don't have to spend an extra ton of money, and you don't have to hire somebody to manage this thing or let it be a time suck for yourself. Yeah, CPQ is a good example of that, especially.
Yeah, it's like everything also like wants to orchestrate, right? And like you just mentioned like hiring a resource, right? And I just saw a post earlier talking about how Clay came up with a GTM engineer, right? We say we weren't going to talk about any vendors. We're calling all of them out right now.
Only like 3 so far, but
yeah. No, and it like you said, it's like genius marketing, but also like it's a very real thing. Like you actually do need to a lot of times look for support in implementing these things, especially with something like Clay that's going to it's like a very specialized skill. And it's like, then you've got somebody who's really just operating that. And then it's like, how much have you invested in this thing that potentially might not even be the solution? Again, going back to like, how much evaluation did you do versus like the marketing of, I need to have this thing and it is really important to me. I have not thought about my use case or what value it might provide, but I'm going all the way in on it. And I don't know that is necessarily a bad thing, right? Like a lot of people, it seems like it's working really well for them, but also I'm typically on the side of people who are like, okay, we got this thing and now we have to make it work, and it's just like there's a lot that goes into it that you're just not prepared for.
Yeah. So then how do we get back to the points, like are we just the dinosaurs now, and our wish will never be granted, or do we just need to get with the times and accept that everything's a platform?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and it's that's a really good question, but I also don't think it's like just us either, right? Because we have to think about the users in this too. And you kind of mentioned like your team here prefers this and your team there prefers that. And it's like going back to Gong as an example, like Gong was just call recording. Now it's forecasting, it's coaching, it's deal inspection, it's pipeline hygiene, it's sales engagement. But like you literally just got your sales engagement team to like fully be in the groove with outreach, right? Like they've just now like perfected what they're doing in outreach, and they hate change, right? Because that interrupts their flow. So then like, what do you do when the tools are expanding faster than your team can like realign around them? So I don't know if it's necessarily just us that's the dinosaurs. Like we also have to think about like how it affects everybody else, and are they going to adjust as well?
It's almost like you need, or not need, like because of how robust all of these ancillary tools are, you almost don't actually need a proper CRM like a Salesforce or HubSpot. You could just go back to the spreadsheet days, instead of having like, oh, we've got like the big CRM and like we kind of cobble together some other things to get the job done. Like you've got the big tools on the side, and you sort of just cobble together a Google sheet to manage your list of contacts and opportunities, which I swear still happens even in the presence of Salesforce at a lot of orgs. The problem with that, though, I think, is a lot of them all still rely on your CRM for either a data set or there's something downstream that you go back to the CPQ thing, like cool, like you have, you use like just a quote to cash solution. You don't actually have a CRM. Well, can you manage your product list in that tool? You might be able to, like that might be a thing. Okay, great. Can that tool then integrate directly to your ERP? Maybe not. Or maybe you're building something in an ETL tool to get that job done. But now you're managing, like, I don't know if that ecosystem starts to feel very fragile without the kind of, like, almost feel like this, like the CRM is now just the glue that holds these things together and isn't actually necessary for a lot of the process.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because you, like, right at the beginning, you said something that really kind of resonated because it's so true. Like, there's not a single tech stack that I've encountered where it's precluded people from still pulling things out into a sheet, right? Like, I have yet to encounter like the perfect combination of tools that prevents people from doing that, because it just doesn't exist, right? People are going to still continue to do that. So then you've got, like you said, like they're pulling it into a Google Sheet, or they've got Airtable on the side, or they're putting things in Notion and they're building their own stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, it's like we want to have the best in class of everything, but like, what does that say about usability and trust that we're still
best in class doesn't mean best suited for your use case.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Like I just kind of keep picking on like CPQ type products. Like if you have if you have like tiered pricing and consumption billing, and you want to do your invoicing out of Salesforce, like yeah, CPQ or a tool like that is probably needed, and it probably will be the best for the job. If you just do like your standard SaaS, like good, better, best, a couple of add-ons here and there, like you could just do that like out of a sheet. Like you don't need some giant robust tool. But yeah, nobody wants to say, oh well, like this thing that's only like $5,000 a year it's not best in class, but like it's best for us. Gets the job done.
Yeah, I always want to. I feel like this brings up another thing. I always want to ask people, like, well, how complicated is your pricing, right? Because if it's just typical SaaS pricing and you have annual contracts and we're tracking MRR and there isn't a lot of interdependencies or ramping and things like that, then you don't actually need that. And like people are just so confused, I think, and like baffled when you tell them those things, because everybody, I feel like, and I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, like everybody thinks that their problems are unique. Like they're in like this unique situation where like everything's really challenging and like it has to be a special fix for them, but it's not the case. It's often not the case. It's like we could put a few flows on this and make it work. You probably don't need a dedicated tool for that.
And if it is that complicated and that unique, then you probably did something wrong along the way. There's always
exactly.
that piece of like, oh, well, you know, whatever. I don't have a good example, but like, yes, there are going to be the truly unique scenarios. But a lot of times, like, I had a really incredible manager a while back who I'm still relatively close with, and he was really good about always kind of putting things in perspective. Like, I mean, I know other people have said things like this, but he would always just like remind me, like, hey, we're just selling software. Yeah, and then so is everybody else in this space. So like, yeah, how unique is your set of challenges? Like, oh, you're having trouble with like your lead conversion process from like leads to contacts and duplicate matching and stuff like that. Like, so is everybody else. You know, like, why hasn't that problem been solved? I don't know. Maybe there is a good point solution we just don't know about because everybody's too focused on the shiny solution that does like, you know, ABM orchestration or whatever. And it's like, look, there's like something that just like solves this duplicate matching problem, and like that would I think ease a lot of people's pain. But yeah, like you said, you're hardly ever running or encountering like a truly unique problem. And even if it is a unique set of variables, it's probably like, well, it's the same solution that you've done with something else, just like different ins and outs.
Yeah, it's funny because you just brought up duplicate matching. And this is actually like, and we talked about this earlier in the conversation too, about come up with your strategy first and like then choose a solution rather than the other way around. Because somebody was asking in, I think, WizOps recently, like, you know, what are you guys using for duplicate management, or like how do you tackle a large number of duplicates? And I'm like, I put the tool all the way kind of at the bottom because there are 17 different options out there, and like you need to come up with your strategy of how to do. Like, everybody wants like this magic bullet of this thing that's going to come in and it's just going to fix it all for them, but no, you have to put in the work. You have to come up with your strategy. You have to come up with your plan for managing this on an ongoing basis. You have to come up with the rules for every field that you're going to match, all of that stuff. That's all of the work that you need to put in before you can even select a tool. And let me tell you, no matter which way you go with all of those first few steps, there will be one at the end that you can choose from. You should not start with, I'm going to get this thing and it's going to fix everything for us. It doesn't work like that. You can't get around the hard work. No,
I worked on an organization where there were 11 fields that represented like employee count on the account record. Solvable, dude. But it's like that. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what the field is. Like, trim down the number of data points that even capture the one thing. Now I'm just left by myself. Can't decide if I should take this moment to like plug my own services or just wait patiently or go get a snack.
Sorry for the interruption.
It was a welcomed intermission.
It's so funny because I'm sitting there. Obviously, my son came in and he wanted to watch something on the TV. And it just kind of, I'm scrolling through like all the subscription apps in the TV. And it so reminded me of this conversation because it's like, everybody's just out here trying to sell a subscription. And it's like, man, I kind of miss cable.
Yeah, like Paw Patrol's on like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime. Like,
I just pulled up Paramount.
There you go.
So it's on another one.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if I have 4 different places that I can watch Paw Patrol, which of those places do I choose? Which one has like the most episodes and which one has the most variety? You know, and it kind of goes back to like, I now have 4 different things that can do the same thing for me. I now have 4 different things that can send sequenced emails to my prospect. Which one do I use?
Yeah. Whichever one is best for the job, I guess. But in this case, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we get back to if we can't even get back to Like if it's just too far gone at this point to get back to like the simple solutions, because so many of the way the pricing is with a lot of these tools now, like it's advantageous just to get it all.
Yeah.
And sort of as an insurance policy, like, well, if we do want to do this thing and use this other feature in 6 months, then it'll be there for the taking. Or like, oh, well, great. If that was something that was going to be on a roadmap anyway, then let's just go ahead and get it now. That way we can lock in a discount or whatever. And then, yeah, I think, well, that's probably it. I think I'm answering my own question. Like, that's how we end up in this situation versus just tackling the problem like as it comes up.
How do you think we got here kind of like in the first place though? Like how did we get from like one core system with the point solutions to like everything as platform? Do you think it was like inevitable, or was there like some sort of VC fever dream that happened, or like how did that happen? How did we go from everything had to work with Salesforce to you don't even need Salesforce anymore? We've got our own thing.
Yeah, there's those magic like 7 or 8 years when VC money was getting thrown around like crazy, and everybody had a startup, and every solution was the next big thing, and so you had a lot of things popping up, which is good. But then that means they all needed customers, and everybody started these startups that were flush with cash could go out and buy a bunch of things, and it just sort of became a self-perpetuating cycle.
Yeah, it's funny you kind of, I think, mentioned earlier about like, was it one of the ticketing systems like Zendesk? Like Zendesk used to just be like ticketing, and now it's like chat, and it's like knowledge base, and it's like workflow, and there's AI, and there's customer experience orchestration or whatever. And it's like, I feel like this is kind of how we've seen it really go fully all the way through, because CS was like always like the neglected, like the least mature, I think, in terms of like tech stack. And now like even they're getting like their moment too, and which is great, right? Because they've needed it for a long time. They've been neglected for a long time. But like, are we now taking all of our prospects and all of our customers and doing the same things to them? Is that what's happening now?
Well, it's actually interesting you mentioned CS specifically, because I feel like the rise of CS tools probably was a bit of a product of neglect. You had people who were operators who were too focused on top of funnel, mid funnel, getting the deals in the door for the first time type problems. And CS always was that kind of like redheaded stepchild. And then at some point somebody went, well, this is an underserved market. And now you've got, Catalyst, Tatango, GameSite, like you've got like at least a half dozen other, like Vitally or whatever, like you've got a whole slew of systems that are like basically Salesforce Lite or HubSpot Lite, only to serve like one's relatively small segment of an organization. And they have a lot of the same, there's talk about feature overlap. Like most of them mimic like a Salesforce object structure, because they know that it's going to integrate back in. And so you go, well, hold on. If we're doing the exact same things with the same sets of objects, why don't we just do it in this other platform? Oh, well, this thing has like email sequencing built in. Oh, great. Okay, well, how do you now tell that CS team, like, hold on, that you can't have that thing? You go, well, we need it as well. Go, okay, well, we already have outreach, so can you just use outreach? Well, we don't want to. Yeah, so now you end up in this position where you go, okay, well, over on this side, we've got Salesforce and outreach or sales loft, and over here we've got this one tool that does both things. Like, frankly, like arguably, that actually the move might be, maybe we should take everybody and put them in GameSite instead of, and use it for the sales team as well. Like, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, getting teams out of the thing that they're comfortable in is always a challenge.
And they want the thing that's special for them. That's what I'm saying. Like if we're sequencing over here and we're sequencing over here, and they're gonna be like, oh well, this one measures sentiment. Well, if you don't think that we're checking the sentiment of our prospects as well, because we're looking for what we call buying signals over here, you know what I mean? It is a lot. There's a lot of overlap, and it's just like, which of these can do more than one thing? But again, and this is obviously like the role of revops, we have to be able to have that sort of like bird's eye view to see where those overlaps are, And then it's tough because you don't want to burst someone's balloon when they're like, oh, I'm so excited about this new thing. I've got a demo and I really am in love with it. And it's like, okay, well, we have the same thing over actually here on this team. They're doing this. Can we try that? And if you just don't want to be the person that's like, oh no, sorry, you can't have that.
Sometimes you just have to call the baby ugly. Although it's better if you get included in the demo phase instead of just the like.
It is. But I mean, I would like right now, like I said, I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, well, they've already bought it. So I guess I got to figure it out and make it work, which is great because it's keeping me caught up. But also like, I would have loved to show you how we could do this with the things we have in the junk drawer already.
Yeah. That's a great way to think of it. Is like, what's not just tools that are disposable. What's the shelfware that you forgot about? Yeah,
exactly. And really, maybe the real platform was the friends we made along the way. All the SDRs and the AEs that gave us demos, and the Chrome tab that broke your single sign-on, and really was just doing a spreadsheet's job. But you got more LinkedIn connections out of it.
Sure. Haven't figured out how to monetize that yet, though. So.
No, here's what we need to do, though. I think we need to make ourselves like the official vetting of all these new tools, and that'll put us like ahead of the curve. We'll know what's coming on the market, but we can also be the ones to intervene and be like, nobody wants this. And especially, I don't want this for my clients. Please do not.
Does your tool actually solve a problem, or is it just like a different colored level of bullshit that these other things are already doing?
Yeah. Yep. Or we'll come up with our own. We'll call it like centralized AI, the only platform that centralizes all your other centralization platforms. It's the one pane of glass to rule them all, and then maybe 5 more panes of glass to manage all the integrations with all the other things.
One co-pilot to connect all the other co-pilots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll introduce your agent to my agent.
That phrase hasn't been.
It's a totally different meaning now, right?
Yeah, I'll have your agent talk to my agent.
Agent. And for the longest time, this is so funny. Like for the longest time, this was like right when it was like starting to really become a thing and like a hot term. And I'm just like, what's an agent? And then it took me the longest time to realize it's a workflow.
I was building agents in like Drift and Intercom long before the phrase had ever been coined. Yeah. And then at some point I turned around and went like, oh, I already did AI.
Exactly. Yes.
It was really shitty, but I did it.
Yeah. An agent? Yeah, I know how to do that. I've built lots of those. We didn't call them that.
You mean an overly complicated decision tree? Sure. Yeah, I can do that. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we can tackle that next time.
Yeah. So that means you're going to have to come back for another episode of revops.
Volume 3. People aren't sick of me yet.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see. The audience will tell us.
See what viewership's like.
We agreed on a lot of things this time. I don't know. It might have been too boring. Maybe we need to have another where we like hotly debate something.
That would probably get more eyeballs. I don't know what a good topic would be. We'll have to brainstorm that.
Probably fruit. And why mango is not as good as everybody thinks it is.
I don't know that anyone's ever actually like suggest that mango is overrated. I think it's very appropriately rated. You're just in the minority.
Okay, we'll see on the next episode of RevOps or whatever.
Yeah, comment below whether or not mangoes are over or underrated.
Thank you.
Anytime. See ya.